you operate this Twitter thing or this Instagram thing or whatever the heck. You're supposed to know all this stuff.
Are you kidding me? Did you not get the memo?
Anyway, welcome back to the show.
Can't wait. Oh, yeah.
Welcome back. Man, we've had a great show, and I want to thank Cole Johnson for and the fans for allowing me that first segment to get very, very personal. I'm going to do it again at the end of the show. There's still some things I need to get out. Let's talk ACC basketball, and I welcome my good buddy Conor O'Neill to the program. Good morning, sir. Great to have you.
Morning, Brian. Hope you're doing well.
I'm doing good. Happy New Year to you. And is the ACC down this year in basketball? I'm just going to throw that out there.
I don't think it's a question of whether they're down. I think it's a question of how far down are they. It is not a very good conference.
I thought it was just me because I've been looking at all four teams, even though I'm temporarily not in Carolina, and I really stress the word temporarily. I'm looking at all four teams, and I'm not impressed by any means.
Yeah, I mean, Duke is impressive, but they're not impressive when they're coming off of a week-long pause for COVID.
Right.
And that was kind of their problem last week, and they needed to knock some rust off, and they did so against Georgia Tech. And then Miami is a decent team. I mean, Miami, I think, is still being slept on a little bit from a national perspective. I'm not saying they're a top 10 or maybe even they're not a top 20 team at this point, but Miami does have a lot more skill than I think they've been given credit for, and I think that credit's coming in the next week or two. But, you know, that's still a game that Duke was in a really good position to win and lost.
Yeah.
And so now you look at it as, you know, the perspective today is, you know, even the team that you would have thought was kind of untouchable in the ACC loses a game to a team in the lower level. There's really nobody on Duke's level in this conference, and I still think that. But you know, it's a down league. I think you're looking at a season where they're gonna be lucky if they get more than 4 NCAA tournament bids.
Who would grab those bids as it stands right now in January? Who would grab those bids?
Right now, I think Duke and Miami are the two guarantees. I think North Carolina has been a little bit of Jekyll and Hyde. They're a young team with a first-year coach, but I think they've probably done enough at this point. And then you're kind of that fourth one. You're kind of in a wrestling match between Louisville and Wake Forest.
Mm-hmm.
Louisville was less than impressive in the non-conference, but really has played strong to start ACC play. And Wake Forest had a woeful non-conference schedule. Their non-conference strength of schedule is ranked 350th of 358 in KenPom. But they had 2 big wins last week against Florida State and Syracuse at home. And now they get Duke tomorrow night, and we'll see if they can put a notch on the resume that would go a long way come March.
How big was that Syracuse win for Wake Forest?
It was huge. They got fortunate with some bounces down the stretch. You know, Syracuse turning the ball over with 10 seconds left in their backcourt on an inbound play was as much of a stroke of good fortune as it was good defense and good pressure applied by Wake. And then Wake took advantage of it with the game-tying dunk, and then really commanded overtime with its defense and with some good offensive execution.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that was huge to kind of build on the Florida State win. You know, you don't want to win a 22-point game and feel good about yourself and then turn around and lose 3 days later at home to a team that you're probably better than. So I think just from that standpoint, to kind of stack those 2 wins on top of each other, coming off of a 2-loss week, was pretty huge for Wake.
Conor O'Neill joining me talking ACC basketball. Let's go to Chapel Hill, and you gave the perfect statement about Carolina being being a Jekyll and Hyde kind of team. What's good about them and what's bad about them under first-year coach Hubert Davis?
Well, first of all, I mean, you have to love Armando Bacot. He's coming off a week where his 21.17 rebound game at Notre Dame in a loss was the lesser performance of his two games.
Right.
He goes out and he was really critical of them after the Notre Dame loss. He goes out against Virginia and puts up 29 and 21, which is just an absurd stat line against anybody. That's absurd, but against Virginia, I mean, we've seen players better than Armando Bacot play Virginia twice in a season and not get to 29 points combined.
Exactly.
So, Virginia might not be the same kind of defensive team that they typically have been under Tony Bennett, but they're still Virginia. They still have quite a high floor for what they are defensively, and for Bacot to do that in one game is absurd. So you've got to love what Armando Bacot brings. You've got to love the continued development of Caleb Love as a big scoring point guard, and the combined play of him and RJ Davis in the backcourt. We'll see what Carolina is. I think they're going to be a developing team throughout the year. They've got like I said, they're a Jekyll and Hyde team. They've got the potential to really do some things that amaze you, and that's good and bad. You can be amazed by something good, and you can be amazed by something bad that happens.
And that's defined Carolina the last few years, hasn't it? Like right after their 17 national championship.
Yeah, I think it's a matter of it's that 17 national championship team, and the year after they had a really good team. They ran into a buzzsaw with Texas A&M in the second round that year.
Yep.
But it just. I think that's a product of where college basketball is. You're going to have roster turnover, and you're going to have to kind of remake your roster every year unless you really get a team that sticks together.
Yeah.
And Roy Williams always excelled with having those junior and senior big men that had kind of gone through their growing pains. And, you saw last year they had 4 big men that all probably could have started for most of the teams in the ACC, and they brought back one of them. Garrison Brooks transfers to Auburn to play for not Auburn, I think Mississippi State, play for his dad. Walker Kessler transfers to Auburn. Day'Ron Sharp goes into the draft, and so you're left with Armando Bacot.
Yeah.
And, that's a situation where I think 5, 6, 7 years ago, maybe not all 4 of those guys, but 2 or 3 of those 4 guys are coming back.
Right.
And that's how you build a team, and that's how Carolina would win, 30 to 35 games in some of those seasons.
Yeah. Absolutely. Conor O'Neill joining me here on the program to talk ACC basketball. You'll hear him every week throughout the season, all the way through March, as we ramp up our college basketball coverage. Men and women will take you all the way to and through March Madness. Great to have you back on the show, my man. I'll talk to you next week.
Thanks, Brian. Sounds great.
Conor O'Neill joining us here on the program. And Cole, being a team like North Carolina that's a Jekyll and Hyde kind of team, like he said, I just wonder how far, if they get in the tournament, that's great. And with them being 11-4 right now, you figure, let's do old school math, 20 is the magic number. Yeah, they have a good showing in the ACC tournament. But when you get to March, that's when competition ramps up. And looking at this North Carolina team, I'm scared.
And the recent trend has been for North Carolina to be up and down and up and down.
Mm-hmm.
Almost the year after they won their last national championship. So it's as if you're looking at a team that's still trying to find their footing, and they haven't quite found it yet.
Mm-hmm.
But they're good enough to get their foot into the big tournament door.
Yeah.
Which I know for living in the state, because I've lived in North Carolina a couple of years myself.
As have I.
I know just getting to the dance isn't good enough for the Tar Heel faithful.
Mm-mm.
I know that.
Mm-mm.
I know that. I know that I lived it. In fact, I was in the state when they won. I was in the state when Duke won a national championship, and North Carolina the next year won one.
Yeah.
So I know how it is.
Yeah. Tobacco Road is no joke.
No, it's no joke at all.
When it comes to college basketball.
Mm-mm. Not at all. And
when we're gonna get back, we're gonna get back there. I mean, wife and I are gonna get an RV and get back there.
Mm-hmm.
But
so when you have a team that shows youth, because normally when a team is that up and that down, that shows, and he mentioned senior leadership not quite being there.
Mm-hmm.
It shows that is lacking a little.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're going to have peaks and valleys. You're going to have games where the role players will just show out at home,
mm-hmm.
and then they have no energy on the road. You're going to have that, and really, when I think of North Carolina now, that's where I see them.
Yeah.
I see them trying to get their footing, and they haven't quite got there. They haven't quite gotten back their footing yet.
Not since 2017. I thought I was the only one that saw that.
No,
not
we're going
since
on
2017.
No, and we're going on 5 years,
mm-hmm.
and that's still the case with them now.
Mm-hmm. And in many ways, it's the case with Duke. They haven't won since 2015.
Yeah.
When the tournament was in, say it with me, Indianapolis.
And I sort of expected it, considering this is the first year without Coach K. I expected that to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And you're right, the same thing. The lack of senior leadership is showing in the up and down performance of Duke too.
Which was the senior leadership for the longest time for both of those schools was a trademark.
Yes.
It was the trademark.
It was almost a given that you would have that. In fact, both schools counted on that.
Mm-hmm. They did. They did.
Yeah.
And the ones who count on their senior leadership, the ones who count on their senior leadership pretty much know what to expect, and they still practice hard, they work hard, they're students, they get done what they need to get done, and they show the young guys how to get it done. We're up against the break, but when we come back, I'm going back to my 49ers because they had a hell of a win on Sunday, and the Cowboy fans are talking ish again.
It's Cowboys fan. What do you expect?
All right. I'm going to unload a few things when y'all get back.
Everyone knows what kindergarten is, but have you heard of kindergarten and transitional kindergarten? Virtual learning where you use a morning meeting to do so? Well, if you